All right, hey y'all. Um, tonight I have Mayra with me. Okay, Mayra has a very, very interesting story that we're gonna get into and talk about tonight. I met her during the session at Jubilee, talking about feminism, and ironically enough, someone that has such an extensive background with not only dealing with women but dealing directly with one of the, at least what we're being told, is the biggest facing issue, right, for women and modern women. She didn't really get the airtime that I thought that she deserved. And I mean, who better to talk about it than somebody that's worked with it, you know? So I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself and tell a little bit about her background.
Well, thank you so much, Mary, for having me here in your show tonight. It was such a pleasure to meet you there. I confess that when I first got to the stage at the Jubilee episode, I was like, what is this going to be about? How am I going to be attacked? Because lately we can't really say our opinion because that makes us anti feminist, anti woman, anti this. And then when I tell people, I'm a former Planned Parenthood director, I worked for them for 17 years. Like today, in today's world, like you cannot get more feminism than that, right? Someone that worked for them. Now, why did I stop, Mary? Because when I became the director of the biggest abortion clinic in the state of Arizona, and I saw what everyone's talking about abortion, how it's a business, I had to do something. So I opened my mouth and complained about the abortionists, and that got me fired, which I started a lawsuit against Planned Parenthood in the state of Arizona. It was a wrongful termination lawsuit under the Whistleblower Protection Act. And that has my story on the other side of the fence. Like I like to say, that opened a new door for me. I became a pro-life activist, and now here we are. I'm still feminist. I'm still for women. I still love women. That is my mission, my passion, women.
Now, with that said, I just want to preface this a little bit, and this is for my from directly from my point of view, and Myra may agree with this, and I don't know, and we're gonna get into some questions in a second for her here directly. But going into this segment, I want you to know that I am not here to badger, bully, nor demean women, okay? And you would think that's what feminism would actually be about, but what I saw from Jubilee, in the comments from the people coming over to bully and harass me about my opinion on a show literally called Spectrum. Okay, you're clicking on the show to hear a spectrum of opinions. However, people get really upset when they can't control you, when you don't have the same opinion as them. And so, unlike those very rude, vile people, I am not here to bully or belittle women. I'm here to empower women, and I do that directly through education. Okay. I think it's very important. I get very tired of the mainstream narrative being pushed onto me, being pushed onto people like me, being forced onto me. And that's why I take not only pride, but I take great interest in interviewing, speaking with, and showing other perspectives, right? That are outside of the mainstream narrative. I take very much pride in it. There's been not just women, right, but people in general that have learned a lot from me because, I mean, let's just be honest, especially when it comes to people like me. Uh, I have not seen these topics discussed in a way that we're going to do tonight. Not from people that look like me. I just not have seen it. Even the people that are coming to bully and harass me don't look like me, right? But these, and I don't want to, I'm sorry, because now I'm about to go off on a tangent, but, we'll save that for later. But I just want to preface this. So this is mostly about education, because this, a lot of times, like I said, is either stories we don't hear, or if we do, we assume because of the platforms that they're being pushed through. Oh, well, they must have some agenda. So we only here to educate, give women information so you have resources and you are able. I believe in medical autonomy and informed consent. Okay, informed consent, very important, but I don't want to take too much time. We're going to get right into it. Mayra, can you tell me a little bit about what did your daily task look like being a director for Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, so working for Planned Parenthood for 16 years before the director of the abortion clinic, I had worked in clinics that were mainly preventive, right? That had to do with well woman exams, STDs, birth control. So I became very knowledgeable about birth control and STDs and well woman exams. I mean, I used to go to schools and communities to talk to the community about birth control and to have the kids come to Planned Parenthood. So my day to day, for example, when I was managing the non-abortion facilities, I will be the first one at the clinic, right before my staff, because I will have the keys. I will have to take off this alarm. I will have to start the computers, make sure everything in the room is working, make sure all the medication cabinet is locked up and ready to go, that I have what I need for the day, right? Then the staff comes in and then they start getting ready, for the patients and to see the patients. And I mean, that is at Planned Parenthood, they have to see patients. For the non-abortion clinics, it's patients, probably 2, 3 patients per hour. At the abortion facility, it's a patient every 15 minutes. Obviously, that my whole day changed when I became the director of the abortion clinic. Everything changed. Everything was very different from being a director of a non-abortion facility to a director of an abortion facility. Now,
And
I was,
this was still under Planned Parenthood, though, correct?
yes,
Okay.
correct, correct.
And what area?
Now,
What area was this in?
so I was managing a clinic in Phoenix, Arizona, simultaneously with Flagstaff, Arizona, which is the northern part of the state. Usually it's about a 2.5 hour drive from the city. And then the biggest abortion clinic in Arizona, which was Glendale facility.
Okay. And so, what were the changes? Tell us a little bit about once you got to the side that dealt directly with abortion. Like, what were some of the changes that you saw with that?
Yeah, so first of all, when I was managing the non-abortion facilities, they were funded, right? They were funded by the government. That's the Title 10 funding, the so famous funding that Planned Parenthood gets from the government, right?
Okay.
So obviously, patients didn't have to pay. We were not forced to make patient pay. There was no argument about money, right? Most patients is like, happy, I'm getting my birth control. I'm getting my birth control for free. I don't have to worry about making a payment, right? Whether the insurance covered it or not, they will still get it for free. So that kind of takes a pressure of how to take care of patients, right? Because you don't have to worry about if they're paying or not, right? Since everything's covered, right? So at the abortion facility, there's no funding, obviously. So then there's an argument, right? Patients always have to pay, and you have to make sure you collect it for a patiency. Contrary to what people think that that women can go to Planned Parenthood, oh, they will take care of them for free. No, you don't have money to pay for your abortion, and there's no government funding. There's no way Planned Parenthood is going to help you. So then that was a challenge, right? I was used to being in a clinic that, you know what, don't worry about it. You don't have the money to pay today for your well woman exam. It's okay. You can come back and pay whenever you can. And then a challenge at the abortion facility is like, well, you don't have money to pay. Sorry, you have to come back when you get the money, right? And
Mm.
then, for example, at the non-abortion facility, I didn't have to worry about a patient number, right? I was told between 12 to 15 patients a day. Fine, don't worry about it, right? Because it's funded, right? The government's paying for the bills, right? So there's no worry about it. But at the abortion facility, I had to make sure I had 35 to 40 patients for abortion. That was a quota. Like basically, you don't get that number, you're failing as a director, and we won't be able to pay the bill.
Mm.
Right.
So,
So that's the second thing.
two things that I just learned already. Like, two things that I learned already. First, having a quota, which I guess that actually makes sense because, I worked in a medical facility before. And often, like jobs, I don't even care if we're talking about the freaking police, okay? Most times, people have quotas when it comes to dealing with, like, services or other people. So that's very interesting. Also, that this side was funded through government and then this side was not. So there's two things I learned here already that I find really interesting. What are some of the what are some of the things you started to see that started changing the trajectory of your career with Planned
So
Parenthood?
yeah, so the first thing was the financial side of it, right? Like I mentioned, I was used to not having to worry about that, and going from depositing $1,000 to $2,000 a day from a clinic to $20,000 a day. I'm like, this is not 3%, right? I had been told my entire time during Planned Parenthood that abortion was only 3%, right? But now I'm running a clinic, and that clinic's making 20 grand a day, not 3%. That is not 3%, right? So when it is the biggest abortion clinic in Arizona and it really literally is sustaining the rest, it's not making 3%, right? The second thing I start seeing, the way women are treated at abortion facility, right? I had been on the side of the preventive care, right? And this is, remember, the preventive side is the good side that you hear about Planned Parenthood. I mean, how many women today are even against abortion or have no, like, even some women that have no opinion towards abortion, but they wouldn't have one, right? But they still feel like they feel pro-life because they wouldn't have an abortion or they're not for abortion. Say, well, I'll go to Planned Parenthood because of their burger. I don't go to the bad side, right? I go to the good side, right? And that's how I was, right? Well, I work for the good side, right? I work for Planned Parenthood on the good side, where they do good for women, right? Because we don't have to worry about this and that, and we can serve them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I was used to giving women, right? Giving women the service, giving women the treatment. And then I get to an abortion facility and women are treated like merchandise, literally. You don't have money to pay, you're out of the door, right? You cannot be emotional. You cannot be this. You cannot ask too many questions. It's 15 minutes. The doctor barely talks to them. That was another thing. The abortionist. I mean, people ask me, what do you think about them? Like, I believe they're from another species, because some of them are such wholehearted. But then I start seeing the damage of abortion, right? And the darkness. And when I see the darkness, I see the sadness in the women after the abortion. Most women walking to an abortion facility feeling sad and worried, but you can see a bit of a hope on their faces. Like they told me in half an hour, my life will be back to normal, right? I'm gonna just erase this and I'll be back to normal tomorrow, right? And in 30 minutes, when all this is over, I can go back and chill with my friends or do this, or my life will be the same. Their life will never be the same. And they can see that after, right? You can see the sadness in their face, you can see their questions that are not being answered. And then, like I said, they're seeing the damage.
That's a huge question that I wanted to ask you. Something I've realized from talking to a few different people who have confided in me about the procedures that they've had is that it wasn't sold to them what was like everything from what actually happens in that room to the aftermath after, right? Every woman is different. Women are going to deal with things differently. But one thing that I've talked about is the PTSD that can happen from these things. Also, the kind of like regret in some regards. And with me saying that, the question I'm trying to get to is what type of education and preparation does Planned Parenthood give to people specifically on abortion, and do they offer any services after counseling, therapy? Is it a any warmth in kind of extending further services after the procedure?
Right. So if we're talking about what kind of training or counseling to patients, none. Basically, they give in a package for them to read, and then they read that package. You have any questions? We're here, but it's basically like, okay, let's move this on. So you have any questions? No, have you read everything? Yes. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Right.
That
And then
they
it's
give
sad.
a package. So what does intake look like? Like kind of walk me through the process if I wanted to do this. Is it like I call and then I schedule the appointment, I come in, I have a procedure, they give me a package out the door? Like what exactly does that look like?
Okay, I'm going to walk you through the process in the state of Arizona. Now, let's remember that each state has different laws and regulations, so they work differently. For example, in California, you're able to call, let's say, tomorrow at 8 o'clock and be like, hey, can I have an appointment? Or even just walk into a door of a Planned Parenthood, do a pregnancy test, and move right into an abortion in California. Like, you don't have to have any kind of other process, right? It's a walking in service. Like, not even time to think about it. But in the state of Arizona, it's a more conservative state, let's call it that way. So it has a little bit more legislations towards protection of women. For example, one of them, which I found very helpful. Why? Because I've been with Planned Parenthood this time, right? And I was in before they implemented all these laws and saw the aftermath of the after they implemented these laws. One of them is a 24-hour waiting period. A woman in the state of Arizona has to do an ultrasound and take 24 hours to think about it to schedule her appointment. Right now, Planned Parenthood fought really, really hard at this, and I'm going to tell you why. Because most of the time, 100% of these women show up to do their ultrasound, and only 60% of them return for their abortion. The other 40% change their mind after that ultrasound, because that is a fact. They do change their mind. So, in the state of Arizona, you call in to make an appointment once you had a positive pregnancy test. Now, that positive test doesn't even have to be in a health center. It has to be at home. You can buy a dollar store, whatever you want, as long as you got one positive pregnancy test. They walk into the doors for an ultrasound. They get an ultrasound done. Once the ultrasound is done, is basically they sit down and they're like, well, so it seems on the ultrasound that you're about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever weeks pregnant. This is how the process could go. You can either have the abortion pill or the surgical abortion. And then if the woman says, well, I would like to continue pregnancy. Oh, well, here's a list of places where it can help you. Goodbye, right? Not waste my time. I'm not even going to explain to her, because obviously it's not a sales pitch, right? She's not going to do an abortion. Why waste the time with her, right? If she's not going to be our patient, our client, right? So we're going to spend our time with the women that want to, right? So then you have the one that says, you know what? I am thinking about having an abortion. Which one will be better? Well, this is a pill, right? You take the pill and then, like a period. You're going to take a pill and then pass your pregnancy and then you're done. And then the other one's a surgical procedure. It's more invasive, more like surgery. You have to come in, you have to be here a few hours. There's some downtime, I mean, with both of them, you're going to be bleeding a little.
What would make a woman, I'm not very familiar, what would make a woman decide to do the surgical procedure if it's more invasive when she could just take the pill?
Well, the pill is not a for sure thing, right? It has some big margin of error. There's a bigger chance on the pill that the pill won't work. 30% of chance. Actually, 30% of the patients that take the abortion pill will need a vacuum aspiration to finish the process. And that's what makes some woman, and that's if they're below 10 weeks. If they're above 10 weeks, most women have to choose the surgical because that is the option that will be the safest. And even though some abortionists are giving them the pill up to 11 weeks, is not a for sure thing. So most women after 10 weeks end up having a surgical.
Oh my gosh, my mind is going in so many different ways. So kind of we didn't have much time to talk during the filming of Jubilee, a little time before and a little time after. And I asked you what was one of the most gruesome things, one of the most gruesome stories or things that you've experienced, something that was kind of like a light bulb moment. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I get very emotional during that when I talk
I'm
about it,
like,
and it's okay.
I'm like getting a little emotional, and it's because, and this is just a moment of transparency. For people that have been subscribed to my channel for a long time, I'm sure you can kind of see like growth and me learning things and kind of, some of my opinions changing or solidifying over time. And one thing that I think that happens is that there is such a hard push in the media to give us values, give us morals, give us principles, you have some people that are so hard-lined on issues, yet they have no idea. When you start asking them questions, like it's stuff that I'm sitting here learning tonight, and I'm like, okay, wow, I didn't know this. Okay, now I can know this. This can help me, shape why I feel about this. And I remember years ago having opinions about things that I really didn't know about, to be very honest. And why I'm saying this, and I think it's important to say, is because I know it's people out there that feel the same exact way. I know it is because it was only maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I actually learned what the procedure of itself even consists of. But I was out here trying to call myself having an opinion. I just really wasn't informed. I just really wasn't informed. I was just repeating things that whether it was what I learned in college, whether it's something I got from my friends, whether it was what I got off of TV, looking up to some celebrity that I thought like represented me or this person is cool, whatever those reasons were. And so this has been a long journey of me like learning, unlearning, relearning, and why I think this makes me emotional is because I personally know women that, unfortunately they learned or they did the unlearning on the back end after they had already made decisions based on not really fully informed consent. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I just want people to be educated. I am not here to bully people. I do not like people imposing their will on me. Like, don't impose your will on me. Give me information, share perspective, and we move forward. And so that's what I really want to do. And I don't want to get off topic, but I just had to throw that in there. But anyway, I'm sorry. Going ahead with your the
Yeah, and
story.
and I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, look at me. I was for 16, almost 17 years. I was there, supporting abortion, telling women that that's what they needed until I really saw, right? I worked for them until I really saw what abortion was about. Then I was really clear on what it was going on, right? So I get a 19-year-old patient, right? She's 14 weeks pregnant. And now I'm going to be a bit explicit about the procedure of 14-week abortion. I hope your audience is okay with that. But any abortion after 12.6 weeks happens through the dismemberment of a live baby. Literally, they're alive. And they're ripping out their arms apart and their torso and their head to get them out of their mom. So this girl was 14 weeks pregnant. So that's the procedure. They're going to take off their legs, rip out their legs, rip out the torso. So then the surgical assistant goes into a room called POC room, which is products of conception, to do the puzzle. When I say do the puzzle, let's make sure the baby's put back together. That you have 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 hands, a torso, and a head. Also, another law in the state of Arizona says that the abortionist, along with his entire team, have to make sure that this puzzle has been put together. And only then you can say the abortion has been completed, sign an affidavit, walk out of the room, right?
How many
So
people are on the team?
usually it's the abortionist, the surgical assistant, a nurse that is pushing medication, and sometimes one more person just to make sure there's nothing else in the room. But for the most part, it's 3 people. So those 3 people have to come out of the room, go into this POC room, make sure that everything is being accounted for, every part of the body has been accounted for, go back to the room, finish what they were doing, and continue the procedure, sign an affidavit, stamp it, right? But that wasn't what was happening because obviously that takes time from the entire team to stop, get out of the room, go check, and come back. So the abortionist wants to see a patient every 15 minutes. He will make them sign the affidavit before. He will only send the assistant to look to everything was there. In this case, that's how it happened. Go check everything's there. I'm gonna start inserting an IUD, so we won't take any longer. So I gotta move on to the next patient. It's Sunday. I wanna go home. The assistant goes and says, "We're missing the head." He says, "Go look again." She says, "I look everywhere." It's fine. It's somewhere in there. He finished up the patient, about to walk out of the room. The assistant goes real quick into my office, says, "Mayra, I have talked to him many times. We're missing the head. He's not listening. He's moving into the other room." Now, Mary, another part of my mission today, besides talking about the truth behind abortion and behind Planned Parenthood, it's also making sure people understand. Because just like you were saying, a lot of people are very opinionated, and some people they have their heart in the right place, but they're most of the time think of the abortion workers as these evil people, right? Like that they don't care, that they're just there because they're Satan or satanic or some sort of evil, right? So part of my mission as a former abortion worker is to tell you, no, we're not. Maybe we're confusing the way we're helping women. Some of them really think they're helping women, and that's why they're there, right? So in this case, this staff member came out of the room and knowing that he may fire her because she was complaining about him, tells me, Mayra, he's not listening, he's missing the head, he's about to walk out of the room to go on the next one. I go back, argue with the doctor, and when I said, it seems you're not completed the abortion, you're missing the head, he says, go look in the trash. That didn't matter. The moment I saw his face referring to a baby head as trash, a 14-week-old baby. This was a 19-year-old girl. All I can think was my daughter. If it was my daughter, I will fight for her. I will want someone to fight for her. She can go home like that. Because what if the baby's inside her, right? It could possibly very well be that the head was somewhere else, right? But we had to make sure to find it. Now, referring to a baby head like trash, like if it was another piece of gauze that he had used, I mean, that was so low, so careless. He didn't care. So after arguing, he was forced into doing another ultrasound and he found the baby head. It was right above the IUD. An IUD is an intrauterine device of copper inserted on women to prevent future pregnancies, right? He had already inserted that. So can you imagine how dangerous? I mean, already living baby parts have been one of the reasons why women have died after abortions. When they find
Say that
the
one more time, Myra. I couldn't exactly understand. I want to make sure I got that point. You said one of the biggest reasons.
women have died from abortions because let me tell you what happens. When a woman walks out of an abortion facility, it has residual of her abortion, residual of the baby, any baby part inside her, or any leftover, that becomes infected very quickly because it's dead, right? And it becomes a septicemia, and they die very fast. I mean, some of the women that take the abortion pill, that is one of the reasons that the infection moves in so fast. Now we have to remember our organ, that specific organ, it's very special and unique, but also it's very easy to get damaged, as you must imagine. Like women have died of bleeding so quickly and they can't stop the bleeding, right? It's not like any other part of the body when they're able to stop the bleeding, right? That tissue is very sensitive, if you may say. So in
And
this case,
mhm.
leaving baby parts inside a woman causes septicemia very quickly and they could die, right? There's laws in many states that prevent this from happening. And that's why I told you the state of Arizona had a law that he had to make sure. He had to make sure before he could say that abortion has been completed, everything has been accounted for. So when he repeats the ultrasound and he finds the head above the IUD, he has to repeat the entire process. That 19-year-old had two abortions, literally, two procedures done on her. Two times the IUD was inserted. He falsified her chart, did not even tell her, didn't document anything. He was refusing to document anything at all. He actually refused, even to the moment of trial, that he refused to document anything because he wouldn't accept. Now, why would abortionists not accept this? Because you have to report complications. And that's another thing I complain about. The unreported complications that happen daily that they will not document and not report. Why? Because our statistics come from that, right? When you go and look up of the Good Match Institute statistics or Planned Parenthood statistics or any other abortion site statistics, these statistics come from the health department. Where does the health department get the statistics? From the doctor, right? Everything. Whether it is about flu, whether it is about now COVID, whatever the hospital reports is what we get, whatever comes from the doctors, right? Just like everything else, right? So when abortionists don't report their complications, you can see how it's very, very hard for us to know the truth, right? If they're not reporting the complications, they're obviously, our statistics show very low complications during abortions, right? Because they're not reporting them.
How common or rare would you say are the complications? And then I want you to tell me about death as well, death after the procedure.
Yeah. So unfortunately, complications are more common than they let us to believe. And I'm going to tell you why. Just like a lot of people, I believed into what Pampering was feeding me, right? Less than 20% of patients suffer complications, right? But obviously, again, this goes from not reporting them. I become the director and I see there's complications daily. You're talking about out of 35 patients that we saw a day, at least 5 of them will have complications, right? Daily. Complications were happening daily. Perforations were happening daily. Sometimes, Mary, they don't know they're perforating the patients. They don't know. Why? Because an abortion, it's a blinded surgery, right? Let's say that you can ask a dentist. I mean, I don't know if you go to the dentist very frequently, but I welcome you. Next time you go to the dentist, tell your dentist to do your oral exam without looking at your mouth, like guessing. Like close your eyes and just
So
guess.
they never like they never look like it's
It's
like
they can't, right? They don't have a camera to go in, and even if they do an ultrasound guided procedure, it's like a mirror. It's like doing everything on a mirror. So an ultrasound, it's like a mirrored image, right? Everything you see, it's the opposite, right? Because of the way the sounds are, right? So like you can't really see. It's like trying to do your hair back, like try to in the mirror to do something in the back of your hair. It's very hard, right? Because you can't really see straight. And that's what's happening. There's no way they can get inside our body. There's no way they can get inside the womb to do this, right? Now you can see doctors now performing open heart surgery on babies with cameras where they get inside, or they even open up the mother, right, to do this. But just to go in, right, without being able to look inside and just guessing where you're doing things, you can imagine how it is. Now,
so
one of the
it's all
Mhm.
pretty much based on accounting for all of those parts at the end of the procedure. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You doing it without the visuals, but by the end of procedure, you just need to know you can account for all of these different parts.
Correct. And then the other one, it's scraping them. Like they scrape them a few times inside. They scrape their urine walls a lot to make sure everything has come out. And thus that scraping, I mean, I welcome anyone to scrape their arms, their legs, their hands. You may not see the scar there when the pigmentation with the sun heals it, but the scar is there. We know this right now that they do so many kind of facial. We can see the damage of the sun in our skin, right? That we cannot see. Like right now, you cannot see some of the spots that I have because we can't tell. But once you do those kind of testing, when you can see the damage on your skin, you can see the scarring, right? In the years, it's there, right?
So what happens? So you gather the baby parts and the baby parts are on the table. What's the next? What happens next? Like what where do these things go?
Well, in the state of Arizona, in many states where they have to be cremated, they just go to with the trash. They go with the biohazard waste and they get literally incinerated with everything, all the trash from hospitals and everything else. In states like the state of California, state of New York, and many states that do actually more with them, like fetal research, that they use the tissue for experimentation. Like I know I mentioned to you the Pro Life San Francisco, which is this great page of these kids in San Francisco who have been really strong against the San Francisco University for the experimentation of genitalia and other baby parts in the University of San Francisco. But in places where they get to experiment, where it is legal and it's fine for them to literally traffic them, then they save them and then they send them to labs and then they send them to places to be reused.
Okay, so in those places, what is that like? Does the patient know, or is it, well, you had this procedure, you left the body parts here, so if we want to send those to the university, we can? Or does something have to be signed, a waiver? Because, well, I'll get your answer first and I'll follow up.
That's right. The patients that attend the University of San Francisco Health Center, they do sign a release form that their baby will be used for experimentation. Even some of the patients are asked to wait to be a little further along so they can extract their baby a little further along so they can use their organs a little more developed, right? And they're okay with that. I don't think they quite understand what's happening with their babies, to be honest. I think they just tell them, oh, See, the wording, right? We're talking about an industry. The abortion industry is very smart. We're going to agree on that, right? Like, they really know how to word things, right? So, for example, if you tell a staff member, you know, that woman really needs you to help her have an abortion because her life will be devastated if she can't have the abortion, then you're like, oh my God, she really needs this, right? I need to be there for her. In this case, for example, you tell a woman, you know, we really need your baby, you know, because science needs to advance and we need to see what a lot of the cells, and this will be used to help and save the lives of many. Of course, a woman say, use my baby, right? You're telling her you're going to save lives with your baby, right? So at that moment, what does that woman feel like? Well, you know, I'm kind of feeling like a hero, right? Because I'm going to let you use my baby to save someone else's life, right? And this is when it comes when they think their baby's being used for the developing of Alzheimer medication or vaccines or things like that, right? In this case, the University of San Francisco does let them know that they will be using their baby for some experimentation. In other states where they don't have to tell them, you know, like, you're okay that we disregard the remains, however we find appropriate. And that it means a whole window of what we're going to do with them.
So there's, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, it depends on the state. Sometimes they tell them, you know, and the body parts are being used for good. Sometimes they're just strictly being used for experimentation. And then sometimes they tell the lady, well, hey, we're going to use these and we'll use them the best way we see fit. Am I understanding that
Exactly.
correctly?
Correct. Yeah. We will disregard this however we feel it should be done, right? So then that gives a whole window of what to do with the remains, right?
Have you ever seen any instances of possible medical racism or patients being treated differently based on race, demographic, or anything like that in the facility that you worked in?
Of course, I mean, just the fact that most of the locations are located where low income, either where African American people live or Latinos live, for example, here in Arizona, right? The area where the clinic was located, it's well known for being African American and Latinos, right? So we know that the population will be going to the clinic, correct? Because that's where it's located, right? It is not located on, for example, the expensive side of Scottsdale, Arizona, you know, the rich side. Now, obviously, so it is targeted to people that are low income, you know, to certain races, you know, even though they try to deny it. Right. The reason I was hired by them, Mary, is because I'm bilingual. I'm an immigrant, I'm Mexican, and so the Mexican people will feel comfortable. Now, what does this practice comes from in Planned Parenthood? Well, it goes way back, Mary. It goes way back to Harlem, New York, 1936, where Margaret Sanger opens the first Black clinic where she hires Black people to serve the Black community so they feel comfortable. See, it's same game plan, same game plan, right?
Yeah.
You hire the same race so people feel comfortable going in because it's their people, right? My people will be serving me, so it should not be bad. And then
Um,
I also remember the part where they were letting them call and make donations and be like, hey, I want you to donate, but I want you to make sure that this money is only to pay for the abortion of Latinas, of the abortion of Black people, right?
mhm, mhm. Something that this was a connection that I made a while ago. Why I find it super interesting, you talking about how some of the women don't really know what those body parts will be used for, repurposed for, whatever the case may be. And it reminds me of the story of Henrietta Lacks, and she was a are you familiar with that story? She was the Black woman who her cells have been used, I mean, widely in like so many different medications and just things to just help society in general. And um her family ended up suing once they found out that her cells had the, you know, the research and everything had been used and replicated. And of course, like, people make a profit, like, let's be real, at some point, whether you want to argue about how that's being done, there's a profit being made, money is switching hands at some point. And I just find it really interesting that you have so many black feminists, black women on the front lines who will, say her name for better, lack of better terms, say her name, say, the family deserves so much more and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, it's literally still happening in modern history. But nobody's gonna say it like that. Nobody's gonna package it like that. But it's absolutely the truth. And these women may unknowingly be putting themselves in that very same position for that to be happening. Let's talk a little bit about your lawsuit. Can you tell us what was a final straw and you going, becoming a whistleblower and moving on to decide that you were actually going to sue Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, so I gave you the example of the 19-year-old, right? That was the last drop. I said that's it. That came after a couple of months of me seeing the complications that were unreported, the breaking of the law, the falsifying of patient charts, and not following the guides and regulations put in place to protect these women, right? And I had complained and complained, nothing was happening. But this time it was like, that's it. That's it. That girl could have gone home. He wasn't listening. This has to stop. I remember leaving that day, calling my supervisor, said, that's it. You either do something about him or I will, but he will stop harming women. That I welcome next week with You're Fired. You fire Mayra. I became a threat. Let's remember, Mary, that I don't know if you know, but part of my story is that I got on 2016, I got a Employee of the Year award because I was so loyal to them. I mean, I was so loyal to them and devoted to the mission that in April of 2017, they sent me to DC to advocate for them so they won't lose their funding, right? Because I was so loyal to them. I mean, there's pictures of me along with their former CEO, Cecile Richards, of that's how loyal I was to them. And then 3 months later, I'm complaining about the abortionists and they don't like it. And in that moment, I became the threat, right? I was no longer the Employee of the Year. I was no longer the loyal employee they sent to DC to represent them. Now it's a threat, right? So they fire me. And I can assure you the decision to start a lawsuit, I mean, I tell people, that saying that says, snitches get stitches. I know that a lot of people were like whistleblowers, they're not looked the same way, right? A lot of people will tell me, whistleblowers don't get a job. You cannot get a job anywhere else. No one likes whistleblowers, right? In Spanish, we call them chismosos. If any of your audience speaks Spanish, they'll understand what that means. But, at that moment, I had to make a decision. It wasn't an easy decision. I had a lot to lose. And, taking on into a big corporation like Planned Parenthood, because at the end, Mary, this is what people sometimes forget to remember. They are a corporation. Their
Right.
nonprofit is just a taxable status to not pay taxes, but they're
Mhm.
still a big corporation. Their name is there. It's Planned Parenthood Corporation of America. They're a corporation. And people
Mhm.
forget that. People forget that we're dealing with a corporation, right? They just think of it as something good, but I have seen politicians says that they won't take money for their corporations on their career. And here I see the name of Planned Parenthood support, and I'm like, ha, there you go. You just took money from another corporation, right? So um, taking on such a big corporation, Mary, because also one thing most people I found very funny that most people don't know that Planned Parenthood is not an American issue. It's international. Planned Parenthood is more affiliates than McDonald's has locations in the world. That means there's more affiliations to Planned Parenthood than McDonald's locations. That is a big corporation worldwide. So to take on someone that big, and I'm just a Mexican, with no money, right? They have all the money in the world, all the lawyers of the world. They can bring big lawyers from New York. They can do whatever they want. They can just squish me like a bug, right? Make me disappear or whatnot. It was a big decision.
Crazy,
But
man. Going up against big pharma, like, because I mean they're a part of that. Like they're a part
they
of
are.
that.
Thank
These
you.
people
Yes.
Big Pharma is like the mob. It's like gang
Yes.
culture. I don't care
Yes.
what nobody tries to say, that like they will disappear you. And these people are not superior or moral just because they have this title, just because they're a corporation. It's literally like the block, like people fighting over street corners. They don't want you coming in on their territory, just like you mentioned earlier. It's like, nah, like we have quotas. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
have quotas. The minute they felt like you weren't loyal, you became the ops. You
Yes.
know? So, I mean, it's just crazy. So, what was the okay? Because that's only one part of the story. You sued Planned Parenthood because you were fired. At what point does it switch to pro life, though? Because that's like a totally different thing. So, what?
Yeah, I mean, the actual lawsuit, it's a labor lawsuit, right? And that's what we purposely left it like that. We didn't want to make this a case of a pro-abortion or anti-abortion and a pro-life thing, or, we didn't want to make that. This was a labor lawsuit. And why? Because they fired me because I blew the whistle about the abortionist, right? And they wanted to protect their abortionist, and they wanted to protect the one who makes the money, even though he was, see, Mary, I don't know if you know their slogan, but their slogan is Planned Parenthood no matter what. I really believe that. I believe they care about women no matter what. I care about women no matter what. I put my job on the line because people warn me, you're gonna be fired if you complain about him. I say, I don't care. He's putting women at risk. And I care about them no matter what, right? And I thought the CEO felt the same way as I did. My supervisor felt the same way as I did, but no. No, why? Because what they care is about their business no matter what. What matters is that the abortion continues to happen every day, right? I'm just a simple director of a clinic. I can be replaced, but how hard is it to replace an abortion? It's very hard. So
Mm,
obviously they didn't want to have to replace the abortionist. They didn't want to listen, they didn't want to listen to my complaints. So I had to prove my case in court that they fired me because I complained about the abortionist and they were protecting him. So now that case is done. I won the lawsuit against them against all odds because I promise you, Mary, if I had $1 for every time a person told me you're not gonna be Planned Parenthood, I mean, why did you even go there? You're not gonna. It would have been bigger than the verdict, right? Now, just so you know, the 12 people of the jury, they were all pro-choice and pro-abortion. When they were selected, and I don't know if you ever seen a jury selection or have you been part of a jury, but boy, it's hard. It's 100 people in one room, and they get interviewed, right? It's a whole day thing. Each person gets interviewed about how they feel about different things, like how they feel about me being Mexican, how they feel about immigrants, how they feel about suing corporations, how they feel about the corporations being mean to them, how they feel about abortion, how they feel about Planned Parenthood. And then this is how they select the last few people to be part of the jury. So obviously at the end, those people were selected. They were all pro-abortion. They were pro-Planned Parenthood. And they were, so at that moment, I was like, oh, geez, this is going to be bad. And then my lawyer's like, no, no, this is good because this is what you want. Because when you win a case, when most of the jury was um, on for the other side, then they really are doing their job. They really are doing what a citizen is supposed to do in a lawsuit, which is just be
mm,
unbiased, put your political views aside, right? Put your personal beliefs aside and listen what is the truth, right?
mm.
And during a lawsuit and a trial, you have 50% of your time to give your side of the story and your proof, and they had 50% of the time to do the same thing, right? And then whatever they take into the deliberation room, and they decide what was the truth and what was not truthful. At the end, Mary, they knew what I was talking was the truth.
And so you won the lawsuit. You did mention that you can't talk about the settlement. Do you kind of want to give a brief explanation
Yeah,
of
I
why?
mean, the jury awarded me $3 million against Planned Parenthood on the verdict. I mean, just so you know, I had to make some sacrifice in order not to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and that's basically what I can leave it at for the settlement. We did end up closing the case, and then, but then they gave me the freedom of speech because what I did this for, I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it to become famous. I didn't do it to be a pro-life activist and go around the world. I am a pro-life activist now because I am against abortion because of the damage of abortion and because of what it's doing to the society today, the way it treats the unborn, the way it treats women, right?
So
That's why I'm against abortion.
at what point did this happen? Like at what point? Because that's a very hard switch from going from literally working, I mean, to the point where you're seeing the baby's parts like on the table to pro life. Like that's like a 180.
It is. It is. It's a whole new Myra, to be honest with you. It's a whole new Myra. Becoming the director of that clinic has been the darkest of time of my life, Mary. I did not sleep. I can tell you those 10 months that I was the director of an abortion clinic, I did not sleep. I was in so much stress. I put up so much weight. I mean, you saw me already with some of the weight off, right? But I put so much weight. I couldn't sleep thinking if I will get a phone call in the middle of the night telling me that a woman has died from that procedure or from taking the pill. I will have nightmares about the baby part. I mean, being in an abortion facility, this is why sometimes I want you people to understand no one grows up saying, I want to work in an abortion clinic. No one. I don't know about you, but I've never met anyone that says, what's your dream? I want to work in an abortion facility. I want to be an abortionist. I want to be the abortion director. No one says that. I've never met anyone who says that.
So let me ask you this. The people that do work in the abortion clinic, is the mentality that, do you think it's so, oh, this is helping women, I'm here to help women, I'm here to help women, or do you think that they just kind of accept what it is, this is what people want, I'm just providing a service? Like what's the mentality and the culture of the people that work there generally that you?
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you the reason why abortion workers were in abortion facilities, the same reason why women have abortions. They're vulnerable. They're in a situation at that moment that they're desperate. Let me tell you, the majority of the staff that works in abortion clinic are just recently graduated. They just graduated from nursing school. They just graduated from MA school. They're people that are barely coming in into the medical field. Planned Parenthood opens the door. The abortion clinic opened the doors. They're gonna pay them better than any other employee. Any other employer are gonna pay them. They start them at the minimum. They're gonna make it hard for them to be the main nurse or whatnot to get like a full-time job as a nurse. And that's the first thing that gets them in through that door. Second thing, oh, we're doing something good, right? You're told that baby's better off not being born, right? I remember one of the abortionists, a female abortionist, saying to me once, a less crackhead in this world because the mom was an addict. One less drug addict to come to this world,
She
thanks
said
to me,
that
she said.
too. So your stance now on pro life, can you kind of expound, because I believe that there's a well, maybe not, but we were on the show Spectrum, and some people have, like me and Grace, I think we have some similarities but some differences as of how we think the issue should be handled. What's your stance on it, as far as like some pro-life people want Roe v. Wade to be overturned? How would you describe yourself?
Well, the Roe versus Wade thing, it's a lot more complex than people think. Like a lot of people are saying like they're just gonna ban abortions. As a pro-life person now, don't we wish that will be the case, but that's not what it's happening.
Okay.
First of all, the case that challenged Roe v. Wade right now, Jackson versus Dove, which comes from Mississippi, Jackson Women Health Center challenged a ruling in the state of Mississippi. Let me tell you, Mary, the law in Mississippi said we're going to stop abortions at 15 weeks. It was not making abortion illegal like people made other people think. It was not banning abortions from Mississippi. It was limiting abortions to 15 weeks. This is already past the first trimester. This is into the second trimester. Like, it wasn't banning abortion like a lot of people are trying to make
Right,
it seem like. It was
right,
just limiting abortions to 15 weeks. Now, where does it challenge Roe versus Wade when now in that law it says that it is a human being, that inside that womb it's a human being? Now, once Roe v. Wade is challenged, and taken away from the Supreme Court, I mean, from the Constitution, then each state will have to fight to make whatever abortion legislations they have. Each state will have that fight. So we're far from being this fight over. Like people are making think that, oh, okay. And then another thing I keep hearing is like, oh, you're sending there's this is what some people have brought it in my they have sent me messages and put it on my post. Oh, you want women to go back to the hangers. Let me tell you, abortions, whether it is in a black alley or in a Planned Parenthood location, it is the
It
same
sounds
thing.
like the same thing. And
It's the same thing.
I just learned this tonight. It sounds like the same thing based on
It
what you
is
just
the same thing.
the
Right
doctor.
now, Mary, what does it sound to you when a woman is going to be able to get that abortion pill by mail with no medical knowledge about it, no medical person to talk to about, no instructions from a medical person? She will just simply order her pills, get them home. She will not even have an ultrasound. There won't be an ultrasound to let her know if she has an ectopic pregnancy or if she is even pregnant, right? She won't even know if she's really truly pregnant, right? Or she even had a viable pregnancy, or if she didn't have some other complication that made it seem that she was pregnant, but she wasn't actually pregnant. And now she's taking all these pills to release a pregnancy that she may not even have, or an ectopic pregnancy. That's a back alley abortion. So when people say you're going back in time, we are back in time. You're giving people pills to take them at home on their dorms in the university and just take them, and whatever happens to them, who cares? They're going to end up bleeding in their bathroom by themselves because no one has even looked at them. No one knows if their iron levels low, if they have heart problems, if they have high blood pressure problems. No one's telling them then not to drink alcohol, not to do this, right? So that is a back alley abortion. What's the difference? So when people ask that, now another excuse is that what's going to happen with all these victims of rape? Mary, less than 3% of abortions are because of a rape or incest in the world. I'm not only talking about, and this is statistics coming from Planned Parenthood and Good Matcher Institute. These statistics coming from the WHO organization, from the United Nations. Less than 3% of abortions are because of rape. 80% of the abortions today, Mary, happen from women age 18 to 26. Grown women, right? Grown women that were capable of using some sort of birth control, condom, or even the morning after pill, like they all say that they can buy without prescription too, right? They can go get.
So what do you actually like? What is your pro-life activism? Like, what is it? Like, are you about more education? Are you about
Yes.
changing the laws? Like, what are you asking to see specifically?
Mary, if we sit down and wait to depend on politicians, we are gonna sit down and wait forever. You and I know this, right? You and I know that politicians are not there to care about what we want to care. My point is we have to start at home. You know, Believe it or not, I have two kids. I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old daughter. And trust me, even though I worked for Planned Parenthood for 17 years, neither of them have seen abortion as an option, right? Why? Because this is the work that you have to start at home, the formation, the education, prevention, right? Prevention is key, right? We have to go back and prevent. I mean, what century are we now? With all these methods, with all these ways to prevent pregnancies. Why are we even talking now abortions up to 9 months now, right? That's barbaric. I mean, the fact that we went from rare and just in very
Don't
extreme
even say that.
case.
They don't even say that anymore. Rare, I think it was rare, safe, and legal. Like they literally don't say that anymore. Like that term just disappeared and people don't even notice. They don't even say anything about it.
Now it's on demand up to 9 months, any time of the gestational age they're in, just for any reason. Like a woman in the state of New Mexico, it's 8 months, and she's like, you know what? I was planning to have this baby, but I bought a house and I changed my mind. Let me have an abortion.
How often is that an often occurrence that you have people going that long in a pregnancy and coming into the clinic?
Well, sadly, it's more frequent than people like to think. About 30% of the abortions are happening later. Now people are like, just 30%. Excuse me, 30% is a big percent, we are referring that 30% has nothing to do with a medical illness of neither or, nor the mother, not the baby. It's 30% of the elective abortions. Elective abortion is key because they don't use elective when it's a fetal abnormality or a mother illness, right? But an elective abortion, 30% of late term are elective abortions. I mean,
Do you have any interest in changing the laws to make abortions not available to women?
well,
I'll let you answer.
I said that will help a lot. It will help a lot because we have seen in the state of Texas that once the heart bill has passed, a lot of women start looking for other options. They start looking for options for number one, not to get pregnant. Planned Parenthood released a statement saying they have seen an increase of 60% of the intake of birth control, Mary. Planned Parenthood itself said that in the state of Texas. The moment the heart bill passed, they saw an increase of women of 60% of birth control. They're using more long-lasting form of birth control. The condom sales went up. The birth control sales went up. Why? Because once you don't give them that option, there is more chance for prevention. And now that's what we should all be fighting for: more prevention, more education. I mean, I don't believe that anyone really wants a woman to go through a procedure that I have witnessed. No one wishes that on their best friend. No one wishes that on another woman.
Have there been any like safety concerns, threats, anything like that, even up until now, or doing your lawsuit with Planned Parenthood?
Well, during the lawsuit, I had been threatened and being deported by Planned Parenthood. You know, that was one of their weapons. They wanted to deport me because I mean, at some point, working for them, I was undocumented. Mary, I came to this country with a tourist visa. That visa expired, and I found myself without the legal documents to work. But Planned Parenthood knew that from the beginning. That's how they hired me. My entire file was all Mexican credentials, so that's one thing they couldn't argue in court. So they did. Now, after the lawsuit, do I feel concerns on my safety? Well, some days, when we've been DC in some marches or that I go outside of Planned Parenthood for some event, I have to be more extra careful, right? The doctor that I accused for is from Tucson, Arizona, which is a couple hours away from home. So every time I go to that town for some event, I be extra careful. Of course, I'm concerned for my safety, but anyway, I mean, you are concerned for your safety too. I mean, anyone who's willing to open their mouth and give their own opinion.
That's sad. That is like sad. That's like almost pathetic. I don't think I say or believe anything that's extreme. Even when I did a live last night, the young lady that was on, Kim Naturally Fashionable, she was like, yeah, I mean, you're pretty moderate. Like most black people especially are just pretty moderate, but you have some people that think that the things that I say are just so outrageous, which I think is weird, and I don't think I'm the anomaly. Actually, I don't think I am. I don't think you are. um
No, actually, I think when we were on that in the Jubilee show, I mean, we all think the three females there, we were all lined up with our beliefs. I think the only thing we were not aligned on was the free Pats in school, which is the only one that said, that's
um,
it. That's it. The rest of it, we were all aligned pretty much, so I don't get it.
and then you have men on the other side of the room trying to define womanhood to us. But anyway, we won't really get into that. um you talked early on in this interview about switching to you said it's like a whole new Myra. It takes a different mindset switch to go from somebody that was literally, this is not somebody online hashtagging, this is not somebody online telling their feelings, this is not somebody that was like me 4 years ago, just having an opinion, don't even know what I'm talking about, just don't have a real balanced perspective, informed, information, informed a perspective about kind of like the totality of the procedure, what's going on, and all these other things. with that said, the mentality and the switch from going from somebody that was in the abortion room to now somebody that is on the front lines fighting for life of the unborn. How has that journey looked like with friends and family? Like were your family like immediately supportive? Did you have some people that were like, well, I was cool with you then, but I'm out now? Or, you know, what has that support looked like for the people that knew you the entire time and through this journey?
Yeah, well, you can imagine that a lot of the my coworkers are not quite there. I mean, a lot of them turned their back on me during the lawsuit, right? Now, I can tell you that surprisingly enough, there's been a couple events where I do events, or sometimes I bump into people I used to work for Planned Parenthood, or I know them. You know, they were former coworkers, former workers too, and they were like, thank you for what you're doing, thank you for what you have done. They really destroy people's lives. You know, Planned Parenthood really destroyed my life. Planned Parenthood really destroyed the employees' lives, destroyed women's life, you know. So relatives, I mean, I'm sure you go through this. I mean, we have the ones that love us and we have the ones that, you know, just because we're blood related, they can still say we're blood related. Otherwise, we would have nothing to do in their lives, right? But, you know, it was you and I were chatting the other day, and I said, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm not in here to preach the choir. You know, it will be easy for me to just be involved in my church group, to stay in my Catholic church, and people will love me and they will praise me. But I like to go out and then go on the other side. Why? Because I was there once, Mary. It took me a long time to understand and realize that I was wrong. You know, that has been the hardest part of my journey, looking back and being like, damn, for 16 years I was devoted and telling women, you need this. For 16 years I tricked women into getting abortions, and I don't know how many of those women had been able to recover, or if they have even been able to recover. I don't know how many of those women have been able to get pregnant again. They may not have. I know a lot of them. I have met a lot of them who approach me on events and go like, after my abortion, I could never get pregnant, you know? And then you can see their pain in their eyes. And then to know that you were part of giving that pain, you know, it's a lot of work, you know, it's a lot of work. I have to do a lot of forgiveness towards myself. Obviously, I pray for the abortionist all the time, specific that abortionist that I accuse of. You have no idea. I pray for him and I pray for him. I pray that he stops him, because believe it or not, Mary, I won, but nothing changed. He's still practicing, he's still seeing women.
Um, what I want to say to you is that first of all, I appreciate the work that you're doing, educating women. I appreciate, you know, you kind of looking inward in your story of growth. And what I want you to know from my perspective is that we all grow, we all have a journey. I've found myself on the side of stuff, or kind of like inadvertently supporting things that I didn't really understand the depths of what I was supporting. I didn't understand holistically and the, you know, the total picture. And I think that a lot of us, way more people than what ever admitted, I think a lot of us are guilty of that, especially and unfortunately, you know, people in the Latin communities, people in the Black communities. A lot of times we've just been handed a narrative. We've been bullied into almost taking on the mantle for other groups that wish to use us, whether that is to push a political agenda, whether that is to push division, whether that is to make more money and line their pockets. And sometimes, believe it or not, some people are genuinely just pushing things because they've been told or they believe, you know, that it's a good thing, and they don't even have ill intent. And so I 100% appreciate you for coming on to talk about this. I learned so much tonight because some of this stuff I didn't know. I just wasn't unaware. I was unaware, and it's kind of helped, me even understand some things in a better light. And so I appreciate you for that. Do you have any final thoughts before we leave? And also want to tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, well, Mary, I really think that when most people learn about abortion and the way abortion happens, the way it destroys a woman, that we're not helping them. We're really not helping them through abortion. We're actually making it worse, because most of those women end up recurring to alcohol. They're not able to get pregnant. They really have a lot of emotional distress in their lives after that abortion. But then the way we're treating the unborn, and then we have to look back into everything that we have called injustice, from slavery to the way the Jewish were killed, right? If we just go back to history, then we realize that what we're doing with abortion, it's nothing different than what was happening during the slavery time, that what was happening in Germany to all those Jewish people. It's not different than that. Then people realize the injustice of it, and this is the abortion is the biggest injustice of mankind, because someone that is not able to defend themselves are the ones being treated like trash, are the ones being treated like you don't matter, you don't need to be born, or the way people with disability. I mean, how sad it is that today a person with disability, has to explain or apologize for being born because their mother should have aborted them, because that's what most of the world tells them. If you have a disability, you should not have come to this world, right? Because that's the number one excuse for abortion. So I am very confident in the new generation, which is your generation. It's a pro-life generation. It's a generation that understands more the human problems, and that it's more kind. And even though some people say that, yeah, that's not true, I truly believe that this new generation will see what my generation couldn't see, and that is that the unborn and women deserve better than abortion.
Um, I think one of the unfortunate parts about what we're being told is feminism is that they silence the experiences of certain women. If it doesn't align with, the narrative of what womanhood is supposed to be about, and we know that that narrative is usually based, backed, propped up by the corporations, right? Um, then you are ousted, ostracizing these other things. And one thing that I hate, and this has been based, on my personal conversations with people, is that the women that are suffering from like PTSD and things like that, not really feeling like there's a space for them in the abortion conversation. Because, like I said, you know, there's a spectrum of women. Women are going to handle and deal with things differently. And just as much as we give voice to and will highlight the woman that had her abortion and she wants to accept the Oscar award or whatever award it is, and talk about, how it's great for her career and her life, I think we should give these same platforms, equal opportunity and balance to the women that may have not had the same story or the same outcome. So that way, these younger women can make very balanced, informed decisions. And that's all I want, not to necessarily um impose my will on people, try to bully people, belittle, judge, or make people feel any type of way, other than saying, hey, it's more information out here. And sometimes I have to be the one to highlight those other voices, because it's not many people out here doing it. And so yeah, I think that's it. I think this was a very informative interview. And I know I already asked you, but is there anything you want to add to what I I just said, and then I'll make sure that I drop your Instagram and everything in the comments as well.
All I want is the abortion becomes unthinkable. That women really don't think that abortion is an option, that we're able to prevent abortion, that our youth doesn't have to think that they have to kill another human being to keep going forward. That unplanned pregnancies, especially when you see that the group of women having abortions are above 18 and from 18 to 26, unplanned pregnancy should not be still happening in our century with our technology, with our knowledge today.
All right, so thank you for coming on. Thank you for everyone that watched and super chatted. Please share this video. Make sure that you give a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, make sure you please go ahead and hit that subscription button. What I want to do is continue to spread some of these stories that are somewhat untold, or if they are told, it's not really, packaged in a way that's informative. And so, yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks. Have a good night. Bye.